All right, everybody. Welcome. This is the 2024 edition of the Diversity Inclusion Working Group Town Hall. We're super happy you are here. My name is Carol Payne, and together with Rachel Rose, who's also on this call, we'll be talking in a little bit. We chair this working group and have done so now for, I've lost count of the years, less than five. But yeah, we love doing this work. We're really happy this group exists, and we're excited to talk to you about the work we have going, both a look back a little bit on the past year and a look forward to what we're doing a little bit in the future and some current stuff. So we've got a couple other speakers joining us today to talk about some separate initiatives, and then we'll start with just a general kind of an update on the group. And we go to the next slide, please, which I think is our
So,
agenda.
yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not going to talk through this, but this is our agenda. We'll do a recap, future plans, and some initiatives, and hopefully have some time if anybody has questions at the end. If not, we may give you some time back in your day, which would be great. All right, let's go next slide.
Right. So this slide is just a reminder of the mission statement for the ASWF. So really the purpose of the ASWF is to increase the quality and quantity of open source contributions by providing a bunch of different foundational things that lower the barrier of entry for developing and using open source software in the VFX and animation industries. As a part of this overall mission, one of the goals of the ASWF is to focus specifically on diversity and inclusion and in raising the profile of software engineers in our industry. This is an important goal for the ASWF and one that we all want to invest heavily in. And to that point, in 2020, the ASWF formed a new working group called the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group, which is the working group that we're talking about today. And really our purpose is to break down barriers, to help increase connections and bring people together such that we can have an impact on diversity and inclusion initiatives across our industry and across open source in general. We are all very passionate about diversity and inclusion, and we have a wonderful group that meets regularly to try to affect change. Our working group is actually organized around three overall goals. The first is to increase diversity and inclusion within our own organization, the ASWF. The second goal is to have external outreach and education, especially among high school students and college students, in order to teach them a bit more about our industry, as well as open source software in general. And then finally, we also want to engage our members and provide guidance around topics of diversity and inclusion that everyone can use and share and learn about. So next, I'm going to hand it off to Carol, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done over the last year, and then we'll come back to me to talk about what we're going to be doing in the future.
Yeah, so it's crazy that it's already been a year. We wanted to highlight first, again, for this group, our D&I landing page, and this technically was an initiative that doesn't quite fit in this last year kind of time frame, but we wanted to highlight it again as something we've kind of consistently gone back to as a resource this year, and tried, to make sure that it's having impact. And we really do feel like it has upped our game a little bit in terms of how we talk about our working group. Before we launched this, we basically had our Confluence, which was good and it was great, but like this is like a nice page. You can get to it right from the ASWF. I think the ASWF site, I think Karen put the link in the chat, which is great. Thank you. But right from the ASWF site, you can get to our group's landing page and see what we're working on and see some of the great blogs that we have going in this space and get to our Slack. And it's a really great thing that we can share around. When people ask how do we get involved with this group, we point them to this page and say, look here, do some reading, and then jump in and get involved, come to a meeting. It's all kind of from this space. And so we love this as a resource, and we hope to continue to use it more in the future. And then the next thing that we want to talk about is last year's summer learning program. And we're going to talk about this year's in one of our featured speaker slots. But last year, we just wanted to highlight that we had a great program with a LGBTQIA plus focus. with 20 learners from all over the world. We really focused last year on continuing our technical career focus, staying in our niche of what we're good at the Software Foundation, which is technical careers in media and entertainment, and continue to be more and more successful at that. We started students also last year for the first time, or learners, sorry, for the first time with all in the same course, with a Maya course that was gifted to the learners, which is the first time we've done that. We're doing it again this year, and that's been great. And yeah, it was a really, really great program. And Karen will talk more later on about where some of those folks have landed, which has been super awesome. And then next, on the recap side of things, we did our first Dev Days last year. And that was a bunch of fun. Dev Days is our version at the Software Foundation of a hackathon. It's a 48-hour event where folks can come in and contribute to an ASWF project of their choice. We worked with a lot of the projects, 5 of them specifically, to make sure that they had the tickets set up so that first-time contributors could come in, get onboarded to the project, and successfully complete a pull request and get an issue fixed in that 48 hours or in that one day. As we made it, we was like spent one work day on this, and it was really, really great. We learned a lot, and we're doing it again this year, second iteration, hopefully a little bit better. We've got 6 projects participating this year, and it's taking place September 26th and 27th, which is a Friday or Thursday and Friday over here in this hemisphere, and a Friday, Saturday for Australia and New Zealand. And so we're super excited about that. Registration is going to begin at Open Source Days, but I think I could say now that we actually did put Emily put the registration page up live today. So if you wanted to go and register today, you could. But we're going to officially announce the registration at Open Source Days. So thank you, Emily, and your team for all of the work getting all of this set up and done. And we're excited for this event to take place again this year. And I'm going to hand it back over to Rachel.
Yeah, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of a preview of some of the things that are coming up this year, and we'll do a deeper dive into a couple of these things. So I won't go into too many details on some of them, so that other speakers can talk more about them. So one of the things that Carol and I started several years ago, so maybe going into our 3rd year of overseeing the working group, we started meeting at the end of each year and starting to plan out what the next year might look like, with the intention of being very focused on achieving some goals under each of our different goals each year that the members of our working group are really passionate about. So this is the timeline that we developed for 2024. We're obviously in the middle of 2024, kind of approaching the end of the year. But a lot of great things are listed on this calendar, and we've actually stuck pretty tightly to the expectations for the year, with a little bit of differences. But importantly, the thing to note here is that there are initiatives on that calendar that fall under each of those different goals, with the intention, again, of making improvements towards each of these goals steadily each year. I'm not going to go into all of these, but I do want to add that there was one additional goal that we added after we did that calendar, which was to work with the USD Working Group on accessibility. You're going to learn a lot more about that initiative, as well as the Summer Learning Program and the Open Source Diversity Framework with our featured speakers in just a few minutes. But let me give you a quick little primer on 2 of the things that we're not going to dive deeply into today. The first is the TAC Diversity Initiative. So a few years back, we tackled one specific initiative called the Governing Board Diversity Initiative. And the goal of that was to work with the Governing Board to identify ways to potentially increase diversity within the Governing Board over a number of years. What that turned into was actually a discussion on succession planning within the Governing Board. It was extraordinarily successful, and we were very happy with where we ended up in the end. with a plan that really looked at how to bring the governing board process forward such that we're planning for the future, which also happens to open up opportunities for a diverse members of our community to participate in the future. So we'd like to do the same thing starting this year for our TAC. The TAC is very different. And so what we've done so far this year is start to discuss the specifics of how the TAC works and try to identify possible plans for how to do the same sort of process, which might have other benefits of thinking about succession and growth for the organization, but also think about how to provide opportunities for the inclusion of everyone within the organization. So that's a very important topic, and hopefully next year we'll have some great things to report on related to that. The second thing to mention is the International Science Fair. So the International Science Fair Initiative is something that we have been interested in for a couple of years, which is the idea that the ASWF might be able to get more involved with the International Science Fair as a way of bringing the science that is involved in our industry to the forefront in high school minds so that they can start thinking about careers in this industry very early on. So this is something that we haven't actually started this initiative yet. The goal at the end of the year will be to start to scope out what this might look like. But again, this is something that we are very excited and passionate about. Excellent. So now what we're going to do is going to dive into the 3 other initiatives that were listed on that slide with featured speakers who will talk about each one of them. I'm going to pass it over to you. Summer Learning Program.
Yeah, so the Summer Learning Program, as we'll see on this next slide, started in 2021. So if we click through, we can see all of the different areas of focus. It looks like we went a little too far with that one. Little spoiler alert, but it's all good news, which is really exciting. This is a big initiative under our outreach section. Kaitlin and I co-chair the Summer Learning Program. And as you can see, we're into our 4th cohort. We have some SLPs here today, which I'm very excited to see their growth in the industry and just where they're going to be after having this experience over the summer. So you can see the different dimensions of diverse communities that we have outreached over the years. And this year we decided for 2024's cohort to open it up to have the candidate self-select which and how many areas of an underrepresented community they identify with, and have an open group for this year, which has been really successful and very thought out as we continue to build this program and iterate year over year. So each one of these cohorts represents 20 learners who are dedicated to learning their technical skills. As Carol mentioned previously, the last 2 years specifically have been very successful in recruiting technically minded individuals. The first year we had a little bit more of the artistry folded into that. We learned from that. And like I said, we continue to iterate and learn from, actually, Kaitlin and I have a huge document that we continue to add notes so that we can grow year over year. In the next slide, you'll see some notable results, which Carol also alluded to. Now, these are jobs and internships. We'll get to higher education in just a second. But on the slide, you can see whether it's internships or entry-level job positions, we have a pretty, especially with 20 people within the cohort over 3 years, because our 4th one isn't complete yet. But we have a pretty exciting track record with this. So we're seeing that this is successful. So around the start of this year in 2024, I reached out to as many of the SLPs as I could. Most of them I'm connected to on LinkedIn, and just caught up with them. Hey, what are you doing now? What have you done? In the case of the 2021 cohort, they've been sort of released into the wild for a while. So just hearing some of those stories has been really impactful for me specifically, because this was an initiative that the group in this room started, and has had a lot of impact on the individuals as they continue to find their voice in the industry, find that they belong here. And this is exactly what we are trying to do. What are some other points that I wanted to say about this? Yes, a notable and just that the SLP for our alumni, so to speak, was a big moment for them. They might be studying computer science in their undergraduate and kind of interested in film. So this was a big part for them to say, wow, this is it. This could be what I want to continue with as a career choice. In the next slide, we will see some, I will say that it is a smaller percentage, probably closer to like 15 to 20% of all SLPs continue their education, whether that's in PhD or just graduate studies. But you can see here some of them are, really into. There's one with PBR inverse rendering studies of, research engineer. So really advanced thinking and definitely impacting this industry, as well as, having that SLP rolled into their thought process going into this higher education and making them think more critically about open source. How can we get this advanced acumen towards open source? So that has been really exciting as well. Definitely, well, maybe not our prime market, but as we know, we definitely need advanced thinkers, especially in that research and development side, to be pursuing this. So we felt very proud that many, a good percentage, it's a non-zero, that are continuing their education after having the SLP experience. And finally, in the last slide for SLP, for this talk, I want to talk about things that we have grown over the past year. I mentioned that we continue to iterate and try to think more critically about how we can best serve this cohort. And, we always canvass them and say, hey, how did it go? What are things you would do better? What things really stuck with you? And last year we started the speaker series. So I am going to kind of skip around here a little bit, which you can see our most recent one. I put the little flyer here. So shout out to Verity for designing that for us. But we started the speaker series last year, and it was overwhelmingly very exciting. This is a synchronous, just like this, but it is also recorded where applicable, so that people who, since we are international, that they can watch it and not have to stay up till 3 a.m., although some of them do. So it's a really exciting way for people to come together and ask questions in that sort of informal, but also feels a little businessy, great experience that we've continued this year. The other thing, going back to the first point here, as Carol mentioned, last year we had a lot of success in technically minded folks. And this year we had, of our 20-person cohort, 19 of them listed programming and software development as their primary choice. The only person who didn't listed effects and simulation and had programming and software development second, but they were computer science major and minoring in physics and like data science. So I count that as a full sweep. So really exciting that we're reaching 20 individuals that we can have direct impact as our organization, as a group of volunteers, connecting them with mentors and helping them see that they belong here. And that's really exciting for all of those that are involved. We did start the application process a bit earlier, just so that we could have a longer rollout for, applicants to get the news out. We had engaged some leadership to seek out other colleges and affinity groups to spread the word a little bit more, which I think was really helpful. We did have our largest application set. That could also be because the diversity dimension was much wider, so we don't really know there. But if you're listening and you think, oh gosh, my alma mater, or I know a high school that does really great things with STEM and diversity, please reach out to me and let me know so I can connect with them. And we try to do this program every summer, and we usually are starting, March, April, and trying to get the information out there. So always open to more connections to reach more people. And we've had a pretty good success, having a diverse set. It's not just like everybody from Harvard or wherever is applying and that's it. So we have had a good success with that. So really excited to make more connections with anyone who is listening. We did give the SLPs a solid month to onboard this year, which was new for us. We weren't sure how that was going to go, if they were going to be like a little antsy, but this helped with the software side of the house just to make sure that they had Maya installed. Maya, as you know, has a license. So those SLPs who aren't in academia would have trouble with that, but our partners at Autodesk were helpful in just trying to smooth over some of those wrinkles. So we were able to start the SLP with everybody, hitting go on the asynchronous learning content on day one, which helped, I think, with smoothing all of that out. The other things you can see on the slide here, we added a few talking points. So now that we have garnered a good number of alumni, we were able to bring back former SLPs and have them talk about their experience and things that the current SLPs can then think about and maybe make their experience better. Kaitlin has done a fabulous job developing our wiki. I encourage everybody to go there. It's not just for SLPs. There's a lot of resources on there just for about mentorship and about learning. It is meant for our people, but we do try to make it as broad as possible. And this might seem like a small thing, but I am also going to plug our ASWF store, our swag store. So we got vouchers this year to kind of drive traffic through our internal store. I'll drop the link in just a second. But our SLPs were able to, we usually give them like a t-shirt and thank you, Kaitlin, a t-shirt and like a hat or something like that. So in this way, we were saying like, hey, here's a voucher, get whatever you want, get whatever size you want, whatever color you want, whatever branding you want. So I thought that that was a really helpful way to not only have affinity with ASWF as a whole and not just the SLP, but also exposure to other projects. So, all of the logos on there for OCIO and OpenEXR, like they're all there. And the SLPs might see that and be like, oh, what is this, right? So a really exciting way to just continue to not only have our SLP as a really strong pillar of this working group, but also be like, hey, ASWF is super cool. Like, stick around and be part of the development team that we were talking about before to diversify not only the code base, but also potential leaders in the industry. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tom. I use he, him pronouns, and I've been working on the open source DNI framework initiative. I feel like I first learned about it at last year's open source days. Rachel talked about it, and I was interested, so I reached out to her and have been trying to work on it since then. It's been a very busy year on the virtual production stage I am on, so my time has been a bit limited, but the time we have had together has been really fruitful. If you don't mind going to the next slide. So the crux of it is to, as you can see, explore whether we could provide an open source framework for DEI compiled from best ideas from member companies and benefit our community. We have done a lot of work. Alicia, who works with the summer learning program and the ASWF group as well, did an amazing job gathering resources from around the internet. We have an amazing spreadsheet I can send your way with lots of resources if you're interested. Oh, that's the wiki. Amazing. Still. But Alicia's done a great job with that. So we've been combing through those resources, figuring out what would be best to publish. We came away from it with two goals. Actually, if we don't mind going to the next slide. We are still a work in progress. We have two main goals. One, in the shorter term, coming up with some blog posts and some other resources that we could publish via the ASWF working group in a more accessible way. And then the longer term goal of actually developing this open source framework and figuring out where could it best live. What else are there partners we could work with? Are there member companies we could be working with? And publish some case studies, publish some actual information, and get something together that folks could be pulling from and pushing to. We have a Slack channel that is active. So if you would like to join, please join us, or feel free to reach out to me and I will happily add you. We're always looking for more voices in the conversation. A lot of folks on this call have been involved and really amazing in sharing their thoughts, sharing what they would like to see happen, sharing how they think it could be improved. I am trying my best to get us on a more regular meeting cadence, but my schedule has been slippery. But I was hoping to have the next meeting of it at the end of August, but I think I will now be in Atlanta those days, so more to come. But it is an area we are all actively interested in growing. So it would be great to have more voices in the conversation and more folks to brainstorm with. So please join us. And hopefully at this next year, I'll have a presentation that rivals Karen and Kaitlin's and all the work that they do for the summer learning program, because they do an incredible job with that. And it's very inspiring to see what they're able to accomplish and put together. So please join us. And I apologize, my schedule is slippery. I have to run back to my stage to do some more setup work. If you have any questions or there's any other information I can provide, please reach out to me on Slack or LinkedIn, or my email is just my name. So always happy to chat. And thank you all for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. Sorry I
No
didn't
worries.
issue. I was stumbling for my mic, but
Nope,
so
all good.
next up, we have Alex, who will be talking about our accessibility update.
Awesome, thank you. So the accessibility effort, I think on the next slide, it says we started that last year. So this is really new. A new effort that we tried to get going. And the initial ideas that we had for the effort were that we want to raise awareness for building accessible tools, that we want to standardize on accessibility approaches within all the projects that we do have in our organization here, and then identify any barriers to participation in our projects. Since then we've refined what we try to do as a group. And then here exactly there's a lovely video that really it shows really well why we do this. So I'll just let you watch this for 90 seconds, and then we can talk about it more.
People think that having a disability is a barrier. But that's not the way I see it. You can catch up with friends.
Ready?
You can capture a moment with your family. One face, small face, focus lock. And you can start the day bright and early. You can take a trip to somewhere new.
3 miles to the summit.
You can concentrate on every word of a story.
A bird began to sing. Jack opened his eyes.
You can take the long way home. Or edit a film like this one. When technology is designed for everyone, it lets anyone do what they love, including me.
So it's I think it's maybe 7 years old by now, but it's a really good movie that shows that why we're so motivated to work on accessibility and make progress there, but not just for like some customers that we maybe don't know, but at the end, it's really powerful. It's for our community as well, right? We want to enable people in our community to make these movies, to work on the same projects that we work on, without having some barrier, because maybe they don't have all the accessibility features that they need. So it's a fantastic movie, and I really like it. I should say Thomas Logan, I'll mention him in a second. He brought up that idea of that movie. He showed it in a presentation last week. I was like, yes, thank you. This is just amazing. But so back to the slides. The first thing that when we started thinking about this, and what many people think when they talk about accessibility is, I don't know how to call it, but I call it accessibility as data. It's how you store accessibility features and accessibility information in projects, like file formats like in USD or in VDB or something, and maybe have some API to access that information. And that's something we in ASWF can work on, and we can make progress on. But it's just one part of the story. And if we go to the next slide, what there is on even before that is do we even allow people to participate in our projects? Can they be part of the meetings for projects? Can they access our code repositories and our documentation without any barriers? And so even if they would want to work on accessibility, can they? And so that's something we want to improve even before working on the middle part here. And then on the other side, on the next slide, is great. So let's assume we did all this work to get the information into our formats, into our projects. Are they used? Is this, are the DCCs, our tools making actual use of the data that we put into the files? Are there workflows that people build on top of the data and the tools? Are there best practices that we can share across DCCs and tools? And is it for like customers at the end, or is this again content creators and artists? Is it for everybody? And so there's a bunch of things to work on and think about, and it's more than just data. And what we've done over the last year or so. Next slide. A big part right now is again raising awareness and learning. So we had 3 guest speakers. James Craig, a accessibility standards manager at Apple. Neil Milliken, he's the vice president and global head of accessibility and digital inclusion at Atos. Fantastic. And Thomas Logan, he's the founder of Equal Entry. They are really well known in the accessibility communities. And it was fantastic to have them in the DNI working group and in the UC working group to present on accessibility and raise awareness, motivate people to think about this, and educate us on, hey, this is what you can do, this is what you might want to think about, and just spark ideas. So that was fantastic, and we try to do more of that in the coming year. But we did also come some concrete stuff. So if we go to the next slide, something you might have seen, which is the wiki. We talked about the wiki quite a bit already in this call. Maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't notice. We've updated the font that the wiki uses to a more accessible font. It's specifically designed to be more readable. And if you have some neurodivergence or some reading disability, this font might help you to easier understand the text. So small thing, but it can make a big difference for people. On the next slide, we do have 2 proposals that we actually get into. Oh no, actually before that, this is something we did for the USG working group. Again, nothing big, but it's just a tracker that we set up as a Google Doc, where we collect information where people find barriers that they run into, or issues they find with our projects, our meetings, where they say, hey, this is something we can improve. They put it in here and we try to fix it. And this is one where where the font on the wiki was brought up, and so we changed it afterwards. And then next slide, I think that's the proposals. Yes. There are 2 proposals that we have in the USD working group. The first one here is the multiple language support, which adds just support for multiple languages within the USD file format. And that is really, really handy for something like voiceover and text readers, where they know the language of the description, and they know how to read it out, because otherwise you try to read a French text in an English voice and it just doesn't work. And so this is going to be very helpful. On the next slide, that is a proposal for accessibility schema, where we add accessibility descriptions and labels to objects within USD. Again, for screen readers and things, and this is going to be really, really handy. Next slide. this is already the end. Yes. If you are motivated, if you are interested, please join the accessibility channel. Everyone who joins and raises ideas, posts a link, helps to build momentum, helps to raise awareness. If you have thoughts about your projects, or if you have an idea that, hey, project X could do this, please share this. We really need all the projects in there, and the more people we have, the better. I think that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was super, super exciting to all of our speakers for all of our initiatives today. It was great to hear from all of you. Thank you for putting together all the slides and taking the time out of your very busy days to come and speak about the great work that you do every day. We really, really appreciate it. So if any of this was super interesting to you, a lot of the people on this call are already very involved, but we do have monthly meetings for the Diversity Inclusion Working Group. They're on Wednesdays at noon Pacific on the second week of each month. But they're also on our calendar, so you can check that on the ASWF calendar and find the exact time. If that's not in something that's in the cards for you right now, there's lots of ways where you can help initiatives. Some of the things like Alex was talking about, of just like sharing our initiatives when you see them pop up, share them on your socials, and share the successes with your company and why this is important to you and why this should be more of a focus in all of our daily lives. And we'd love you to volunteer your time if you have it. This organization, this whole world of open source is in large part made up of volunteers giving their time, and especially in a space like inclusion and DEI work and accessibility work is made up almost entirely of folks out of their spare time giving so that others can participate. And we love the work that we do. We have our diversity channel on the ASWF Slack, which is our main method of communication. We will occasionally also send out things on our email listserv, but if you want to get a hold of us, and our most up-to-date things tend to happen on the Slack channel. I do believe that is our last slide, I think, right? We have Q&A. I think that's all that's left, right?
That is
amazing.
It.
Woo! So yeah, we do have lots of time for Q&A. Let me see if anything is in there. All right, we do have one. Thank you for the question, asking if there's going to be an email from the mailing lists when registration opens for Dev Days. I think that, and maybe Emily can jump in on this and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if you signed up as an expression of interest, the form we had on the website for Dev Days prior to launching the registration was an expression of interest. And I believe what we can do, I don't think we have done it yet, but when we do officially launch Dev Days at Open Source Days, if you signed up with an expression of interest, I think we can ping out to that list that did sign up. Other than that, there will be, even if you did not do that, there will be so many ways that you will hear about Dev Days, because we're going to be blasting it out at Open Source Days and in the weeks to come, and lots of information will be forthcoming on all of our channels on social media and in Slack and on the website and anywhere else you get your news. So yes, thank you for the question.
Any other questions? Awesome.
Okay.
Amazing update.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, David. Awesome.
Excellent. Well, until next time, hopefully in one of our diversity and inclusion working groups, we'll get to see all of your wonderful faces. And then we will see you at SIGGRAPH and Open Source Days.
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.